A rematch that's been in the making for over 100 chapters. But now, the question is, who should win? What's up guys, welcome to and here we are to do a breakdown and discussion on who should win the penultimate, well maybe not penultimate, who knows, maybe they won't rematch after this considering the U20 World Cup is coming up, but regardless, who should actually win between Isagi Yoichi and Itoshi Rin within the final climactic battle of BM versus PXG. Now, obviously, there are a bunch of things to talk about, so I do not want to waste any more time. Let's hop right into it. So what's up, you guys? Elephant here. Fun fact, I have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Isagi's got it on him, and he keeps it on him at all times. But in my regard, it is a Bladed. Isagi, he got Hiyori, he got Corona, he got Kunigami in the back pocket, Yukimaya on contract, Raichi in his left hand, like legitimately. Isagi got it on him. Meanwhile, Rin, I mean, he's got it on him a little bit, tiny bit, baby bit. But as we saw, Rin destroyed Manshine City on his own. So in terms of getting it, it really is Rin, he, and himself. So who should actually win though? Naturally, a lot of people are undeniably and insanely hyped for this matchup in particular, as most would be. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the games within the Neo Egoist League have been extremely hyped. I know Ubers, before a lot of people thought it started to drag, was super duper hyped for a whole bunch of people. I still remember when Manshine was wrapping up, everybody was itching and scratching to see Baro and Isagi go head to head once again. Even Manshine, the main reason I started like live reacting and reading Blue Lock every single week, well not reading Blue Lock every single week, but at least doing it for the channel was very specific because Manshine was getting a whole bunch of hype because of Nagi, because of Reo, because of Chigiri. But I think everybody in their mama, no matter how big of a Baro fan you are, no matter how big of a Nagi fan you are, no matter how big of a Pachira fan you are, I think everybody knew that there was one match that everyone was going to be itching and scratching to see. And realistically, putting all the other things that the PXG match has to settle, introduce, build up, break down, all that before we get to the U20 World Cup, putting all that aside, the main event, the main thing that everyone's looking to see is the battle of Blue Lock's hero versus Blue Lock's destroyer. The man who decides to lead by example versus the man who destroys by example. The battle of Isagi Yoichi and Itoshi Rin. And this battle has a lot of different context to it. In terms of just raw build-up, who should win pure stats-wise, if we were to put both of these characters at the end of their respective games in a 1v1, I just throw a ball in between the middle of them, say 3, 2, 1, Rin should slam him. I'll be real. Don't get me wrong, I definitely understand a lot of the context behind Rin's domination over Manshine and Ubers. For Ubers in particular, it was Rin against a team that didn't have a striker. Like, remember, at the point when PXG played Ubers, Baro wasn't playing. And don't get me wrong, I still get that they had the best defense in the entire Neo Egoist League, and they also had Big Papa Lorenzo, you know, the best defender pretty much in the world. Maybe arguably the best. I mean, I'll make a video on it, but he may or may not be the best New Gen World 11 member we've ever seen. Presumably he was still playing at that time, but even with all that, on the table, Rin played against an incomplete Uber. I get that. But defensively, they were not incomplete. If Rin could have been stopped defensively, he should have been stopped defensively. He was not. Rin managed to win. For Manshine, don't get me wrong, I know Nagi has kind of been, oh, what is that, Rayo? You want me to score? Nah. Shigiri can do it. Yeah, so I get Nagi's kind of been on a downward spiral ever since he got that super goal over 50 chapters ago at this point. But even with that being the case, even with big boy Nagi doing his Nagi things and falling off, he still had Reo. Reo was playing with as much intensity as he could muster. You still had Chigiri. Chigiri, while admittedly not the defensive beast out there, is still, you know, a marginally decent threat. Agi, even if he's playing for himself, also a pretty relatively decent threat. And Rin steamrolled them. He walked over them. It was actually kind of embarrassing. Like, legitimately, he beat Nagi with trapping. I repeat, he beat Nagi with trapping. So, overall, as Nagi himself admits in the most recent chapter, or the second most recent chapter, yeah, Rin a monster, a beast, a demon. His specs as a player are strictly out of this world. Unfortunately, I can only give one thing, and this is tentative, I can only give one thing to Isagi, and that's that brain. That's that big old brain that Isagi has. But if I'm just throwing a soccer ball between the two of them and just saying, hey, one of you get the ball and score, essentially the same kind of thing that Sei did with Rin back when he returned from Spain, I cannot in good conscience say Isagi should win. But at the same time, I want to contextualize the matchup as the team matchup, as PXG versus BM, with the two leaders of both teams, as confirmed by Isagi's win over Kaiser and their little bet, and as affirmed by Rin literally getting a hat trick in the recent game and dominating, and everyone else falling, what? He had 180 million. I think the next highest guy in his team was Shido with 25, I think. I need to double check that. But that's a big old gap right there. That's a big old gap in terms of offers. So obviously Rin's the leader of his own team, at least at this point. Apparently they still need to play they just play Manshine. They still need to play Barcha. But I think everybody knows how Barcha is going to go. I love Bachira, don't get me wrong. I think everyone knows how Barcha is going to go. Maybe at best, Shido's allowed to get a hat trick over there because Rin's like, I'm trying to save my strength for Isagi. Go ahead, you insect. Do whatever you want. So, while I think the two leaders on their own, in a 1v1, like the position that Rin was put in when Sei first returned, I think Rin dominates. Isagi's gotten a bunch of stat upgrades. He's gotten faster. He's gotten better dribbling. He's gotten better passing. He's gotten better physicals overall. He has the lefty shot. All that's fantastic. All that's irrelevant against Rin. Unfortunately, Rin is just a bigger, faster, stronger destroyer dude. So thusly, in the 1v1, Rin should win. So that's 1 point for Rin. But in terms of the overall team comp, I think Isagi has Rin just a bit beat. Mainly because we have so little context for Rin. That's the unfortunate thing. But obviously the fortunate thing for when we're going to start getting into it, we don't know how much the team actually does. Especially with their relatively low auction values in comparison to other players on BM. Players who have just gotten on the field this match in like the last 10 minutes, like Hiyori. It's really hard to tell how much they really contribute to Rin. Meanwhile, we have multiple clear examples of multiple individuals on BM who are willing to support Isagi. We have Hiyori, obviously his long-range facilitator, even though Hiyori has admitted in the second to most recent chapter that, hey, I ain't just gonna be a lapdog, broski, you're gonna have to earn it. And obviously Isagi's going to earn it, especially on a team like BM. And then, of course, you have Corona, my Shark Boy, the son of Lava Girl and Shark Boy, my boy. Obviously, he gonna be cooking. Hopefully he gets his stamina up. Hopefully he gets that Charlie horse worked out and he's able to get back in the game for them short range passes. So the interplanetary hotline got a massive upgrade. So that's something that Isagi can utilize in combination with his better specs and his big old brain. And then on top of that, you still have the contractors, as I like to call them, Yuki Mayas, who, when push comes to shove, will work with Isagi and will accidentally work with Isagi when they end up being distractions, which is going to be annoying for him to deal with. And top that off with characters like Kunigami, who's very, very fringe, I will admit, but you can tell after the Manshine game in particular, with him helping Isagi develop the lefty shot in the first place, and Kunigami even buckling down, swallowing his pride, and playing some defense. Obviously, Kunigami, he's willing to work with Isagi a bit. And even Raichi, who's likely going to be a permanent mainstay on the field, not just from his auction value, but what he did against Snuffy. He's going to be there supporting defensively. So realistically, the 1v1 situations where Rin gets to dominate super duper well are not going to be immediately available to him when he's specifically playing against Isagi. If we're talking about the two team comp setup, due to a lack of overall data on Rin's part and his seemingly lack of interest in working with his team, rather the total ability to dominate on his own, except for maybe like a pass here or there. We don't know who sent him that pass in the second most recent chapter, but it was either Karasu or that choppy guy that everyone's hyped for. So that's it. That's all he needs. Sure, one guy is cool enough, but Isagi isn't coming with one guy. He's coming with Hiyori, Corona, Kunigami, Yukimaya, Raichi. And who knows who else is going to get on the field. If Jin ends up supporting Kunigami or Isagi, if he ends up supporting Kunigami like a lot of people are theorizing, then ultimately he's going to indirectly support Isagi. So that could be a 6-member, especially since he's guaranteed playtime by Noel Noah. Essentially, the BM that is the original BM is breaking down to Blue Lock. And whether they like it or not, subconsciously or actively, every single BL player is going to be supporting Isagi when they play for BM. And that's going to bolster Isagi a lot. So in terms of overall team comp and his ability to utilize his team to his benefit, even before the multi-week, I forget, how long is it between PXG versus BM and the end of BM versus Ubers? I forget, but it's actually a decent time. So Isagi has time to work up more strats, get better team interplay, work on the planetary hotline, maybe convince Kunigami to be even more friendly, maybe convince Yukimai to be even more friendly, maybe get Jin on the team. You know, there's still so much that Isagi can add from a team coordination standpoint that I think if we're going team comp for team comp, once again, maybe Rin is crazy with his team comp and we just don't get to see it as much because he steamrolled Manshine and we didn't get to see much of that game. But I would have to give the edge to Isagi in terms of who's a better puppet master, who's a better manipulator of his own team, can take advantage of his strengths and honestly overall bolster himself with his team. Meanwhile, Rin's team is kind of just like, it's there, it's present. They're alive. Like, they weren't good enough to stop Chigiri, but then again, who's really good enough to stop the fastest man in Blue Lock? So with that being the case, if we're going overall team comp, team versus team, I'm going to end up giving it to BM, and by proxy, a point to Isagi. So we're 1-1 right now. The next question is, who should win on a character level? Who should take the lead on a character level? Who is the superior individual as a character? Now, obviously, this one's super duper uber juper subjective and also is very questionable based on the raw lack of info or data that we have on Rin at the moment. Bro could have an amazing character development. He's just the destroyer. That's his whole thing right now. He's definitely locked in. He ultimately, ironically enough, he has his sights set high, but I don't think he has his sights set high enough. Obviously, chasing both Isagi and Sei. Very, very good idea. Sei is a new Gen World 11 member, and Isagi is not even the self-proclaimed, but the world-proclaimed hero of Blue Lock. The man just got 2 goals in his recent match. He's been running up the assists. He's been controlling the entire field, taking away the leadership position of BM from the Divine Emperor Kaiser, and overall asserting his dominance on a team that, at least based on the little data we have of PXG versus BM, has started very original team dominant, ended up slowly over the course of 3 games shifting to Isagi's sphere of control. So in terms of character and who's like looking forward to the future, Isagi's only using Kaiser as a stepping stone. He's literally acknowledged that. And in his mind, he's caught up to Kaiser. If he's actually caught up to Kaiser, that's another video for another time. But at least in the context of his own mind, he's caught up to Kaiser. He's chasing the best player in the world spot. He's going after the throne, as he says at the end of the most recent chapter. Meanwhile, Rin, sure, he admits to Nagi that, yeah, dude, even if I did achieve my dream, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. In a similar vein to how Nagi's perspective was limited by his very, almost blinders focus on Isagi. Well, it wasn't almost. It literally was a blinders focus on Isagi. Ultimately, I think that's going to be the reason why Rin, character-wise, kind of needs to fall below Isagi. And obviously, there's the main character stuff, but I feel like that's cheating. Like, oh, well, of course the main character is going to win. But not really. I mean, in Blue Lock, it can kind of happen to anybody. Isagi has taken his fair share of L's in Blue Lock. Consistently, inconsistently. Bro's been getting a lot of dubs recently, but even then, those dubs always have context to them. And that's the next big thing. Even with me believing that Isagi has sort of a higher purpose than Rin, in terms of shooting for a higher goal, going further beyond, plus ultra, if you will. I still think if we're talking about context, with the surrounding context of both teams and how the dynamics are going to be interacting, I think Isagi also has a slight edge there. Because when you look at it, context-wise, Rin, the Destroyer, is going to not just be going up against Isagi, not just going up against Kunigami, not just going up against Corona, I almost said it, I almost said Hirona, Corona, Hiyori. He's going to be going up against Jin. He's going to be going up against Raichi. He's going to be going up against the GOAT Gagamaru, who's already stopped his shots, admittedly replicated to 99%. Like, we know for a factual that Rin is not going to be having the ones. He's not running the ones. Unfortunately, he's joined Jujutsu Kaisen in a sense, because he's going to be getting jumped. He's going to have to deal with everybody on BM. And Isagi very specifically is likely going to exploit that. Sure, I still believe Rin would slam Isagi in a 1v1. But he's slamming Isagi and Corona at the same time? Is he slamming Isagi, Corona, and Hiyori at the same time? Isagi, Hiyori, Corona, Kunigami, Yukimaya, Raichi, all at the same time? Rin is crazy, don't get me wrong, and he's very good in sequential kind of dominating matches. You see this very specifically in the U20, and even in his one-on-one against Nagi. If you can get Rin in a scenario where it's him and his opponent, just in a simple 1v1, Rin can go crazy. But Isagi knows that. He has the data. He's going to be studying Rin and his Destroyer style. And thusly, just like I think Rin can lose, but still be a superior player, just like I think Baro did lose, but is arguably still the superior striker, specifically, just based on his build and his stats and his specs and Predator Eye, I believe that thanks to context, Rin can lose. Whether it be through the lesser utilization of his team in comparison to Isagi, whether it be to Isagi exploiting the fact that Rin needs the one-on-ones, he kind of lives and dies by those, whether it be simply the context of Rin maybe not going uncontested. Notably, we have kind of been radio silent on Shido. Everyone's been like, Shido, where are you? Where'd you go, Bucko? Like, we've kind of been wondering where Broski went, but remember, he's still there. Shido's likely not going to be the most supportive, especially in his last time to show off. Especially if Rin actually gets another hat trick on Barcha. If he actually just goes absolutely crazy there. Shido knows if he drops out that top 23, he's not going to be allowed to represent Japan. He's not going to be able to show out. He's not going to be able to do anything. He's going to be lost in the sauce. And sure, we know Shido's logical enough to not fall into absolute insanity and do something that could get him red carded and removed from the game. That hasn't been hinted at or anything just yet. We even see it in the U20 when he's about to go and just, on Nico, says like, hey, think about it, broski. We're on stage, soccer, you get a red card, you're done. And obviously Shido's likely gotten that development further in mind, but considering Rin has been consistently taking the lead, taking the focus, I could see Rin running into a Kaiser Isagi problem, where Shido's consistently breathing down his neck. And we've already seen back in U20 that Shido, while he's still admittedly kind of inferior to Destroyer Rin, he can get in the way. And that's the big thing. Isagi has people getting in the way on his own team. He has Kaiser. He has Ness. But when Rin is already going to be dealing with like half the team trying to wall him, more than half, with Gagamaru, Isagi, Hiyori, Corona, Kunigami, Yukimaya, Jin, 7 players out of an 11-man team. He's already got to be dealing with all that, and a desperate Shido who's trying to prove himself on the world stage so he doesn't get left behind. I could see that context coming in. And in similar vein to how Isagi believes he surpassed Kaiser, but I personally think he didn't. I just think he was met with a a super favorable situation when Kaiser essentially had himself on lockdown. Bro was essentially bullied the entire game by Lorenzo. I could see a similar vase. Of course, a similar vase. The vase is the secret. A similar case happening for Rin, where ultimately he's going to lose, but it's not going to be because Isagi just overall was better than him as a player. It's just going to be because of the context, because of the teams, because of Shido interference, because of other interference. Something's going to get in the way of Rin. And finally, there's the ultimate thing that has me believing that Rin ultimately cannot win in this final rematch. And it's the fact that Rin's won too many times. Like, I know that sounds weird, but remember, Isagi doesn't, like, if we're being honest with ourselves, if we're being really real, Isagi hasn't beat Rin yet. Like, he really hasn't. Sure, a lot of people count the U20 final goal as a win for Isagi, and I can legally see that. But specifically, I would even count that. That I put in the same vein as Kaiser getting the best goal in the series off of one of Isagi's passes once Lorenzo let up off of him. That was just Isagi taking advantage of a good situation. As Kaiser himself admits, that doesn't really count as me beating Yoichi. That counts as me taking a sloppy seconds. And don't get me wrong, Isagi was very happy to take them sloppy seconds right off of Rin, but they're still sloppy seconds. So that isn't a dub, at least in my mind. And obviously he lost to him for the first time in second selection, got sent down. Then he lost to him again in second selection at the very end. Then he lost to him again, kind of, sort of, when they were playing against the World 5. Rin got a goal, Isagi didn't get a goal. He beat him once, technically, by getting that one goal in third selection, but even then that doesn't count as a dub, because Rin got more goals in that game. If we're talking about sheer striker-to-striker, goal-to-goal thing. Isagi hasn't won once. Once. And that's the thing. I wouldn't be shocked if we gave Rin another dub just to keep stacking him up. But the thing is, we have long-term rivals for Isagi, and unfortunately the Blue Lock project itself is kind of shifting out of the selection process. We're going out of the combatant range, where we're specifically fighting to see who's going to be the number one. Because remember, post Neo Egotist League, post this final game of BM versus PXG, we're leaping into the U20 World Cup. We're moving. We're going. Like that's the thing. We are leaving into a whole new world. And even if you don't think that's happening, remember, if you think the club arc is happening, because that's what a lot of people are saying, maybe we won't immediately go into U20 World Cup, maybe we're going to get the club arc, that's where all these offers are coming from, then even still, the Blue Lock formula as we know it, unless Rin and Isagi get signed to the same team or they end up running into each other when they're playing in clubs, there's no more real time for these two to compete with each other on opposite teams. They're going to have to work together from this point onwards. And even if they do work against each other later on, if you go with the club arc idea, then I still don't think we're going to see that for a long time. I think it's finally time to give Isagi a dub. It feels bad, because when I say that, it's like I'm giving Isagi a pity dub, right? Like, oh, well, you know, I mean, he's lost so often, so I guess we got to give him something. We got to be nice to him. And unfortunately, I do kind of think it's like that. We got to let Isagi win once. And considering all the context that's been going into this, considering all the development Isagi has, and considering the grander scheme, the grander narrative of the arc is all about Isagi truly proving himself as Blue Lock's ace, Blue Lock's hero. He was gifted the title at the end of U20, from his playmaking throughout the entire match, from his defense, all the way to scoring that final goal and pushing the game over the edge, tipping the game over the edge in Blue Lock's favor. But the entire arc has been him proving that he's actually the hero. That this is actually his story. That he actually has a chance, a right, a possibility of becoming the best player in the world. And what better way to prove that than Isagi beating someone who he's never beaten before? Beating the person who was really, in Isagi's own mind, carrying all of Blue Lock on his back like it was a backpack. Who better to prove that against than Rin Itoshi? The man who is realistically the other main competitor. Don't get me wrong, Baro as a striker, I still think he's superior. I'll give it that. And this comes from a guy who doesn't even like Baro that much. But I'll give Baro that. Bachira as a dribbler, I'll give that. Shigiri as a speedster, I'll give that. Rayo as a chameleon, I'll give that. Heck, Nagi as a trapper and creative goal maker, I'll give him that. I'll give every single person that. And Rin overall, as a physical variation of Isagi, I'd literally just say Rin is kind of just Isagi with better stats and everything except intelligence and teamwork. I'll give him all that. But remember, everyone needs to unite behind one thing, one ideal, one person, one individual, and that person, legally speaking, if we're going to go with the whole 4-game narrative arc that we're going with, it has to be Isagi. From him getting on the field against Barcha, to him playmaking his brains out against Manshine, to proving himself as a striker in one way, shape, or form in Ubers, him proving himself as maybe not the best player in Blue Lock. I still think, once again, don't get me wrong, I don't think Isagi beating Rin here means he's the better player. I don't think that. But him proving to not just himself, not just to Rin, but to the world, that for a leader, for the person who's going to be the captain of U20 Blue Lock, be the captain of Japan's U20, leading them into the World Cup, the hero to guide the way to the future of Japan's football. I think it has to be Isagi Yoichi. Rin is a very important character. He is arguably more important of a character than even characters like Bachira, which is wild, but like still, that is the case. But I think all of this, from the context of the match, to the team setups, to the 4-game arc we've been building of Isagi's development and concentration and acceptance and proving of himself as a hero, that no matter what, at the end of the day, no matter how powerful Rin is, no matter how good his destroyer ego is, no matter how amazing Itoshi Rin is, no matter how great his specs have gotten, and no matter how awesome he is as the top player of Blue Lock, ultimately it is his destiny, his fate, to finally feel the pain of defeat at the hands of the man who he's constantly dealt it out to, Isagi Yoichi. However, that is what I think. Please do not be afraid to tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you guys think Rin should win for any of the reasons that I said Isagi should win? Do you think Rin maybe shouldn't win? And do you have more reasons for why Rin shouldn't win? Are you guys excited for PXG versus BM as a whole? Or are you just mainly in it for the Rin v Isagi matchup? I'm going to make a whole video covering like the different aspects of PXG versus BM and why that's going to be such a crazy game. May have the potential to be the best game in the entire series, at least on the character writing front, and maybe even on a goals front. There's so much crazy stuff that's up in the air. But I want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you somehow made it all the way to the end, please leave the heroes win in the comment section down below. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do happen to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include live reactions to a whole bunch of different chapters. Now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a... Wait, I have a blue pencil. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Wakana Plays and Red Wolf 4765. I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons, Winter, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, and Demix LND. I'd like to give another thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. I'd like to give another scrumdiddlyumptious thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Ida Mokami. I'd like to give another thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give one final thank you to our $25 patrons, Igneal and Calvin Elder.